So is the sound okay? Good? All right, because I forgot to check. All right, that's the picture of our creation. You know, God put us together and gave us the carrot, the ideal of perfection, and made in such a way that the stem here is just slightly out of our reach, so we are always striving for more. Okay? The whole lecture today is about the length of this little stem here and how tasty the carrot really is. Because even though God gave us the exact length, that, like I said before, we sometimes make this very short or very, very long. And sometimes we also make the carrot too tasty for our own good. All right? So before we go into the lecture, let us go back to Greece a long, long time ago. Let's look at one of the fables of Aesop. So this is the fable of the eagle and the jackdaw. It's a type of a crow, blackbird. So the jackdaw was perched on a tree branch and was just looking over the fields. And there were a few sheep there. And it saw that at one point an eagle came down, descended very swiftly, grabbed one of the sheep in its talons, lifted lifted up actually, and flew away with it. And the jackdaw looked at that and said, wow, what a tasty meal. And thought about it, and thought a little more, and then he decided, remember, this is an Aesop fable, so the birds are he's, she's, the animals have gender. So the jackdaw decided on his own that it would also try to do the same thing. There he went, saw a sheep, zeroed in on it, went over it, and then tried to grab, but forgot that the eagle was much more powerful than he is, right? And he actually could not lift up the sheep. Not only that, to make matters worse, its talons got all tangled up in the sheep's wool, so that he could not actually disentangle himself from the animal and fly away. So the shepherd saw that, approached the jackdaw on top of the sheep, disentangled the jackdaw, clipped his wings, and gave the jackdaw as a toy to his children. This is the tale. I'm sorry?
That's vicious.
Yes, it is. But it's just a message. It's just a story that we tell in order to say something. And what we are going to say is that this is a story of our needs and our wants. What is it that we truly need, and what is it that we actually want? And are they compatible? What I need, is it something that I truly, what I want, is it something that I truly need? Or am I just looking after chimeras, after dreams? So the whole point here is to see where the balance is. And I'm going to spoil it already. I'm going to tell you that this is not a lecture where I'm going to give you a protocol. I'm a scientist, live by protocols and rules and regulations, but now I can't give it to you. Each and every one of you will have to figure out your own needs and your own wants, and where you are going to put the balance, how you're going to get that balance. So this is not for me to say at the end of the lecture, you do this, you do that, you don't do this. No. Each and every one of us here has different needs and has different wants. So the very first thing we have to do then is figure out definitions. Right? So if we don't have a common language, if we do not structure what we want to say, there is no communication. You might say, oh, I don't like the word needs. I'm not here to debate translation. I am not here to debate vocabulary. I could have called that schlupsi, and the other one schlupsi. Okay? It really does not matter. What matters is that once I write schlupsi there and I give a definition that we all agree what schlupsi means, okay? And what schlupsi also means. Once we agree, we have a communication. So it's not about the words, It's about what they convey, the idea, the concept behind, right? In this case, it's not even a question of translation. It's just a question of vocabulary, right? This is not being translated from anything. So let us look at what needs actually mean for us here today. If you go to the dictionary, you may find something else. If you look at some other way of, let's say you look into psychology, it might be slightly different. I'm going to give you a definition that will allow us to move forward in the Spiritist doctrine, something that we can use for the Spiritist doctrine. Of course, I cannot invalidate anything else science has already put together, but there are peculiarities of things, all right? So we're not going to look at the peculiarities in other areas of knowledge. What we are going to do here is get the definition of needs, and the definition of needs for us here as we want to study the Spiritist doctrine. So, needs are conditions, or sets thereof, whose deterministic existence is inherent to the psychosomatic organization of the individual entity. And you may think that is elitism, that is elitist, to get such a pompous definition. But we have to do these things. We have to study. But don't worry about it. You see, there is something that is very good. There is a person at the Spiritist Center, at SGNY, whenever he sees something like this, or we read something like that, he will go to us and, in English, please. Okay? And okay, all right, indubitably, I will put it into English. Something that we can all grasp. So that's the point. Let us look at all the words there and the things that are important. So what are the conditions? What do we understand here by conditions? These are events. These are circumstances. These are our experiences. Even our attempts at even when we fail at an experience, it's still an experience. This is why I put attempts and trials there, so that we don't think that it has to be something that is successful necessarily. As long as we try something, as long as we attempt to do something, it's an experience. Good? So conditions. The sets thereof means anything that is associated with those conditions. So it's not just the thing per se, the thing itself, but everything that is surrounding immediately around that. So whatever experience I have, even the people around it, the environment around it, like the Spiritist Center, or if I'm at home, my house, my neighbors, depending on what the experience is. So all the conditions, everything that is associated with those conditions. And conditions being events, circumstances, experiences, and so on. Existence, presence, incipience, it's there. So it's nothing related to what I dream, what I'm wishful thinking. Nope, it's there. Now, being there doesn't mean necessarily that I can grasp it, that I can grab it. It's not necessarily concrete, all right? It can be abstract, but it's still a true experience, not an imaginary one. It's a real experience, right? Inherent, that means it's built in, it's intrinsic, it's constitutive. I cannot get away with it. I cannot get rid of it. So for instance, here, let me give you an example. You all have to eat, I'm sorry. You all have to sleep, you all have to drink water, you all have to breathe oxygen. And not only oxygen, a certain amount of oxygen. If it's too much, you die. If it's too little, you die as well. I'm there too, don't worry about it. Okay? Nothing special about me. Okay? So this is inherent to my constitution, which is the next one, my psychosomatic organization. In other words, whatever it is that is psycho, mind, spirit, and somatic for body. So this physical body, because we all here are reincarnated beings, we are all here on this planet in the physical world, right? So we all have a physical body. So this physical body imposes, by its very existence, it imposes, it's inherent to us, a certain number of conditions. We have to eat, we have to drink water, we have to sleep, okay? There is no way around it. We have to have a certain cycle of day and night, otherwise we don't function properly. And this will not only affect body, physical body. It will also affect our mind, which is it's spiritual essence. Okay, and it will also affect our perispirit, our spiritual body. So anything that is material or material and physical gets affected. And anything, as long as I have a physical body or a spiritual body, I have inherent needs that I cannot get away with. All right? But, like I said, it's organizational, so it's part of the structure. If now I change this physicality, I go to another planet, I evolve to a point where I can go to another planet, the structure, the body, the component that I'm going to be using is going to be slightly different. And then the needs are also going to change. Don't ask me what they are, because I have never been to another place like that. So one day I will, and you will too, and we'll know. All right? But the point is, it is dependent on the structure. All right? And the structure also of the spiritual body. And then, individual. It's idiosyncratic. It's personal. It's non-transferable. This is was a very important point. Whatever is a need for me may not be a need for you. Now, because we all share a common human body, the model is the same. Okay? The model is the same. It's the biology organizing model. When we put together from perispirit or spiritual body to physical body, we use the biology organizing model. Because we all have the same blueprint. It's in the details that we differ from one another. We have needs that are common. Like I said, we all need to eat, we all need to sleep, we all need to drink water and this and that. But as we refine our needs, my needs may not be the same as yours. So it's non-transferable. It is personal or idiosyncratic per individual, per person. All right. Did I explain everything there?
Yeah.
Right? But no, I didn't. I left one thing. The most important word. Okay? What was it?
Deterministic.
No, and deterministic. Entity, it's a body, it's a person, it's an individual. Deterministic. In other words, once I come to this planet, once I am on this level of vibration, once I take this physicality, this physical body, this physicality determines my needs. I cannot get away with it. Like I said, tomorrow I can tell you, oh, I want to live just from solar energy. You're going to die. And it's going to be a suicide. It's going to be a suicide, spiritually speaking. Okay? Because we know that we cannot live without a certain number of nutrients. We cannot live without water. So it determines. So it's deterministic. My needs are determined by my psychosomatic organization, as we are going to see later on, by other things. All right? So there you have it. All right? Everything explained, including the deterministic. So it is external to my will. I cannot control. My needs are my own. I cannot transfer, but also I cannot control them. Once I have this physical body, okay, once I put this together, this tells me what my needs are. All right? So that is something you have to keep in your minds. All right? Let us now look at the definition of wants. And it's the same thing. Now we get something. Wants are impositions. So you cannot just say a want is an imposed need. But I don't want to go there. Let's keep the two words separate, okay? But you can actually see it. The want is an imposed need. Wants are impositions and sets thereof, whose willful emergence is imparted by the degree of moral and intellectual advancement of the individual entity. There we go with that same person, which I will not name, but he knows who he is, okay? And this is what happens. You start looking at all these things and you want to go to a psychiatrist. Right now, we're going to look carefully at each word again, all right? So the first thing is impositions and sets thereof. So impositions are events, circumstances, experiences, attempts, trials. You notice that these impositions seem very similar to the events in the definition of need. Okay? Well, we'll see a difference later on. But the same thing, impositions and everything that is associated with those impositions. All right? Now, do you remember the deterministic part? This is willful. I will them. I will them. I wish them. This is a little different than say I want only. This is actually meaning that I will them into existence. They do not exist. Wants do not exist on their own. I will them. This is very philosophical. But give me a minute, we'll see at the very end. We're going to be building it slowly. This is willful. I want, I will, I wish it. Okay? Emergence. That means it was not there. So I can have this physical body and no want. I wish. Okay? I may have no want, but I can want or will a want into existence. So it will emerge, it will appear, it will develop, it will come into being. Right? Imparted. So it's produced, it's instilled. All right? And then we have the extent, the level of my moral and intellectual advancement. So the collection of my experiences. So when I want to will something into existence, when I want to want something, it is my moral and intellectual advancement that will that thing, whatever the thing is, that event, that imposition, into existence. So if I'm an Aborigines, okay? If I'm an Aborigines individual, a very, very simple person, okay? A native individual, my wants exist. They are real. That individual has wants. But that individual can only will things into existence, desires, for instance, of things that he or she understands. You cannot desire for something that you don't even know exists. So the moral and intellectual advancement of each and every one of us here, okay, determines, wills into existence the wants or these impositions. We'll leave it at the end, okay, if you don't mind. And then again, individual. Individual because it is personal. I can will certain things that you won't, that he won't, that she won't, and so on and so forth. So here, both wants and needs are similar. They're both individualized, personalized, idiosyncratic. Right? So, there you have it. Everything I explained on this very, very complicated sentence, which we'll now try to put into practice. Because memorizing that adds nothing to our knowledge, to be honest with you. We need to understand, grasp the concept that is behind that sentence. Whether we remember the sentence later on, doesn't matter. Like I always tell my students, don't remember the tables, the formula, the graphs, and this, that, because that you can always consult in a book. But you need to know what it represents. What is behind that, the concept. So let us try to understand these two together. Okay, so first, let us very quickly look at make a comparison. Needs have conditions. These are impositions. Pay attention to the words. They are very important. When I wrote these things, I thought a lot, very carefully about each one of these words. Okay? So here's deterministic for need, and here's willful. Being deterministic means I have no control. It's determined for me. And being willful means I wish it into existence. So a want is something I can wish. Right? Existence, so it's there. This one, I can create its existence. Here, I am the creator. There, I'm the end user. All right? There, I'm the end user. It's already there. I just use it. No control over its creation. This one is inherent. So like I said, once I have this physicality, poof, that's it. It's determined. Right? But in the case of wants, I want them into existence. I will them. I created them. This is my psychosomatic organization, that it determines it. So it's my physicality or my spiritual body that determines it. And here, it's my degree of moral and intellectual advancement. This is me. Me, okay? Is the area of the egocentric individual, me, myself, and I. This is the one I do everything I created. Not one, like I said, end user. And both of them, like I said, are individual, right? So I cannot transfer my need, I cannot transfer my want, all right? So if we now try to put this into practice, try to understand these two things, how do they come to be? Where do needs appear? Where do wants appear? And what are they for? What is it? What can I do? Can I use needs for my evolution, my moral and my intellectual advancement? Are they good? Is a need better than a want? Is a want better than a need? So we need to be very careful when we have these comparisons. What a need is, understand what a want is. Remember, the bad and the good is where you are going to put the balance on that seesaw. And like I said before, it's individual. So it is going to be different for each person in this room in particular, right? So we need to know a little math. Oh my goodness. So now I'm going to stop. You can ask a question. Sorry.
When you gave the example of the Aborigine and the wants, I kept on thinking that the spirit has the wants, because like if you consider that the Aborigine is he can or she can be oh, I want this, so I'm gonna like leave the tribe and travel down south and go find it.
So we are all spirits, reincarnated. That's the only thing. We just have an extra adjective at the front, reincarnated spirits. So everything is at the spiritual level. Everything is at the essence, all right? So don't worry about whether it's the physical body, whether it's the spiritual body. We are going to see that a need comes from the body. Whether it's the spiritual body or the physical body, it's a need. We are not going to make the split hairs there, because then it gets a little complicated, because then we have to say what is a need here on earth? Is it being imposed just by physicality or by physical and my spiritual body, which is the perispirit? So we're just going to say a need comes from the psychosomatic organization, either the spiritual body or the physical body. Good? Are we good so far? All right. So I said a little math, but I'm not going to scare you. Don't worry. You'll see. It's going to be very simple. I am going to give you the principles, the rudiments of graph interpretation. So I'm sorry if I offend some of you who already know this, but let us get everybody on the same page. So on the horizontal line here, we're going to start 0, and we're going to grow towards the right side, like we read. Good? So anything that I move from left to right is indicating progress. Notice that I did not say age. No age. Spiritual progress. So here I can have reincarnation processes. I can have my spiritual progress in the spiritual realm alone, my spiritual progress here on earth, my spiritual progress in another world. You see what I'm saying with this? This has nothing to do with age, earthly age, not even the age in one reincarnation or multiple reincarnation process. Is everything. This is when my Creator created me, my time 0. Poof, I appeared. If you want to know how it was done, next time when you meet the Creator, you can ask it. I don't know the answer to that. Okay? No, I'm not wishing for anyone to die, but that's the only person that can actually respond honestly and knowing what is saying. Okay? All right. So anything from left to right in the growth, progress. The same thing is going to happen, okay, when now we go on the left. So on the left side here, in the vertical, this is point 0, and anything that moves up here is a greater spiritual experience. Something more intense, something that is more pleasant. It increases this way, all right? That's all, as simple as that. So we're going to call this the intensity of the spiritual experience. So now, let us say, if we put, let's say, 2 experiences. Don't ask me what the experiences are. This is very generic. It's an experience called A and an experience called B. Like I said, I could have called it Schlupsi and Schlupsi. It really doesn't matter. So this is experience A. It happened at this point in my spiritual progress. Okay? And has this intensity. That's experience B. So if we want to read, A happened here, and B happened when I had already progressed spiritually a little further. Do not ask me, oh, this is like 100 years, a million years. I don't want you to think of time like that. Just that B is when I was already I had already progressed somehow spiritually. Good? Now, in terms of intensity, A has this intensity, and look at the intensity of B. It's higher, right? So B is a more intense experience. What do I mean by that? Don't worry. Because if we start giving examples, we get stuck. We get bogged down at the example, because when we start looking at the peculiarities of each, I just want you to think of it in the most generic way possible. A happened earlier in my spiritual progress. B happened afterwards, because it's closer to the arrow, see? As I move closer and closer to the right. A is less intense in comparison to B than B. So now, imagine, I don't have just two experiences in my life, right? We have millions of them. Just between waking up, actually putting your feet on the ground and getting yourself into the bathroom to brush your teeth, you have already had millions of experiences. You can think of it as every event that has happened to each cell in your body, and you will see that there are billions of them. But we'll just, because I don't have that amount of real estate on the slide, we are just going to plot a few more. All right? So we just put a few of them. Now, not all of them are going to be as intense as B. Some will even be more intense than B. And that's what you have. And if you were to put all the experiences, those circles would be so close to one another that you could actually represent it by a line. You see that? Connecting all the centers of the circles. And you would have something that looks like a graph. So now if I want to compare what this experience here at this top here is to that one, what do? I come down, and this is when it happened, spiritually speaking. And that one, all the way down, this is what happened. So that one happened afterwards, right? Whatever that afterward means. And this one had this intensity, and that one had that intensity. So this one is more intense than that one. So having said all of this, having shown you how to read a graph, remember this, the definition of needs as conditions, set thereof, whose deterministic existence is inherent to the psychosomatic organization of the individual entity. So now, let us see how it looks in a graph. This is the graph of our needs. That's the curve that we get. If we put all the experiences we have amassed so far, we will get something that will look very much like that. Okay? That's the shape of it. You're going to say, well, is this shape of my need? Yes. But yours may go just a little further up here, or maybe a little further down. Okay? But this is the idea, the shape of the curve of our needs according to our spiritual progress. All right? Let us try to understand it a little bit. First of all, when the Creator created me, I already had a need or needs. You see, this curve here does not start at 0, 0. At time 0, I already have some intensity, is it not? Right? So I already have a need. The Creator already put in me a need, at least one need. Who can think of it? No. Yes.
Oxygen?
No. No. It's oxygen for us now, human beings, but think of something now more on the spiritual side.
Evolution.
Evolution, what?
Clarity?
Clarity?
Learning.
Learn. Well, yeah. If you put the two together, a need for perfection. Remember the carrot? There was already a carrot in front of us. From the get-go, we already had a carrot in front of us, and we were jogging after it. So it started already with something. You see why I didn't want to put numbers here? I didn't want to make it complicated with examples, because we need just to grasp the concept. So from the very moment that I was put together, in that essence, as the Creator put together my essence, however He did it, however it did it, however it was done, all right, I already came with this thing in me, this eagerness, this desire to get something. That's a need. That is part of my spiritual makeup. Actually, it's not even the spiritual, because spirit is the essence plus the spiritual body, the perispirit. This is at the essence, the very first thing, right? I already had that. So now, let us think about what happens from day 0, the first time, all the way to the top here. You see what is happening here? My spiritual progress is increasing. So let us look what is happening on this side here. Isn't the intensity of my needs increasing?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go back to what you said. Remember when you said about oxygen? So we were not put together as human beings. This is a very expensive car. It's like a Ferrari for this world. In this world, this is like a Ferrari or Maserati. When we were put together, we were very simple things in biology, in the biological world. So our physicalities had needs that were much simpler than the needs that we have today as a human being. Yes?
We had to buy our body like we would buy a Ferrari.
No, not exactly. It's just a comparison. Okay? It means that this body today is very sophisticated, very complex, very complicated compared to the body of a virus, compared to the body of an amoeba, of for instance, a fungus. Okay?
Oh, we don't buy it, but we earn it, right?
I'm sorry?
We earn it. In a way, we do earn these bodies by development.
Well,
Not by buying, but earning.
yes, but we have to be careful with the word earn, because earn means merit, and basically we build them. We build them because, as I see the carrot over there, after a while, running after the carrot is not enough. Right? What would you do if you had a carrot dangling and you couldn't get to it?
Ask someone else to walk up and get it.
Okay, very good. Yes, so you have to develop communication skills. You have to have what? You have to be able to say that is a carrot and make the person understand what a carrot is. So you would develop communication skills. Nobody's giving us anything. The earning is in the sense that we develop them.
Did you also cut the cord? Like cut the cord and you take it out?
Yes, but let's say that you have no scissors, nobody around you. How would you get the carrot?
Like that?
Well, you cannot hold it there, right? You can actually lie on the floor.
Ah,
Okay? And then the dangling, the line will move closer to you. That's another possibility. So what I want to convey is that we will these things into existence. We made our bodies better and better, more and more complex, because we wanted to do more and more complex things. And because I wanted to do more and more complex things, that body that I'm creating imparts also more and more complex needs to me. So my needs go up. Isn't that right? Isn't it going up? But look what happens here. Then it goes down a bit. So if we now look from this point to this point here, for instance, I'm still progressing spiritually, right? But look what happens to the intensity of my needs. I'm going from this point to that. So it's going what? Down, right?
Can't you keep on going up?
Well, what is happening here? For my needs, it plateaus, and then for my needs to begin to get down, what is happening here in this part?
Intensity goes down?
Is my intensity going down? My needs are going down. It means that I am less and less dependent on physicalities. And if you think of the high order spirits who don't even have what? They don't even have a physical body anymore. They don't reincarnate anymore. If you think that they have only the spiritual body, even their spiritual bodies become so ethereal, so fluffy, that they don't have all the demands that a particular planet or orb in the creation would impart on them. So the needs go down. But it doesn't go down to zero, right? You see here, it's to infinity, right? I keep evolving and evolving and evolving. And what happens from this point on? Let's look from this point on. What is here? What is happening here? My need is always the same.
Yeah,
Why is that?
because some needs you need no matter where you are, no matter how you are.
Good.
But I
So,
have a question.
okay, so here, I'll let you ask in a second. So here, my needs, like you said, they continue to be the same. Very good. Now, you tell me, what type of a need you will have forever? Think of one.
Evolve. The carrot.
To evolve, to progress.
Wait, when you evolve, do your hands get longer? So
But you're thinking just in terms of the physical body. Because your hands get longer, your arms get longer. Like, remember the T-Rex, it was like this, right? But the carrot, the stem of the carrot also gets longer and longer. Because the Creator wants us always to improve.
well,
Always.
don't you turn into an angel only when you reach that carrot?
Ah, but I don't know. I've never been there. I really don't know.
Question, can I so when you say it's to infinity, doesn't that contradict the whole Spiritist doctrine that says that we have a goal and when we reach it, like this is it, like there should be like the goal there, not infinity?
Yes, but then I ask you to define perfection. And then you are going to see that you're going to go into a philosophical quandary that more than 8,000 years of humanity have not been able to solve. We don't define perfection. Perfection is something that is always more than what we have. So we never get there. So for us now, because we cannot define philosophically what the end point is, let us think that there is always something that I have to accomplish. Always something that pushes me a little further. Because if I say that there is an end point, do you know what you're going to do next? You're going to go like this. You want to see what is on the other side of the wall. So we don't know what the future awaits. We are not even here, to be honest with you. We're not even here. We're somewhat here, actually. All right? We're still growing and growing in our needs, right? But what is important for us to understand here is not endpoints, is not getting too bogged down by philosophical debates, is to get a grasp of what this represents. That when I was put together, I already had the need to progress. How it was put into me, how it came to be, we don't know. I really don't know. I cannot honestly give you an answer for that. But we came with that because that is what the Spiritism teaches us, that from the very beginning, I always wanted to go forward. And that my physicalities, both physical body, my bodies, both physical body and spiritual body, as I grow, I increase my needs to a certain point, and then eventually I get to a point where I'm now much more moral, much more intellectualized, and then those needs of the bodies, they begin to acquiesce. They don't get extinct. They acquiesce. They are reduced. Okay? Sorry, you had a question?
So evolution was the same need that was from the beginning.
I'm sorry?
Evolution
Mhm.
was the need that we identified from the beginning of existence. Why is it slightly higher? What are you considering more than the evolution to be?
Why is this a little higher than that?
Correct.
Good point. Can I answer after the next graph? Okay, let me go to him and I'll come. Yes. Yes. Oh.
So, you asked the question, and I didn't really understand the answer that you gave. So, after it gets to that point over the hill, it just keeps on going, or does another hill happen?
I don't know. Nobody knows. Because we are living somewhere here right now. So I don't know what comes up, because the spirits, when they write to us, when they give us instructions, they don't tell us everything. They only tell us some certain things. So I can only draw this graph up to a certain point based on what they tell me. But I cannot keep going because I don't know. Let's say if I were a Christ, perhaps I would know a little bit more about that. And like you said, maybe there would be another bump here. I really don't know.
Wait, did Christ have a hill too, or did Christ just have a
Yes. No, it had a bump as well. Because think about it, God has to be just, right? It's perfect justice, correct? Whatever perfect justice is. So everyone has to go through the same experiences, through the same teaching. Had to do. But the thing is, Christ did that way before we did. So when we met him as Jesus, as the man, so when it's the man, we call it Jesus Christ, or just Jesus. When we talk about the Spirit, we say Christ only, to make a difference. When we met Christ in the form of the man, Jesus Christ, all right, he was already much more advanced than we were at the time, than we are today even.
So he was the first human alive. So like he appeared, and
No.
then he was already on the top of the hill, and then we appeared, and we started going up the hill, and he was already going
No, not the first human. The most advanced spirit here on earth. Okay? Let us not think about as the first human. Because like I said, before we were using this Ferrari, we had to run out how to ride a trike and then a bicycle. Okay?
And a scooter?
And a scooter.
Yeah.
My question is regarding the vertical axis, that is the spiritual experience. According to your graph, the spiritual experience decreases at a certain point, and the need, and so does the need. So what you're saying is, as we become intensity, yes.
Just intensity.
So what you're saying is that the intensity decreases over time. So what I need you to
After this point, yes.
So what I need you to, maybe what I'm not clear about is the definition of spiritual experiences. Let's say Jesus Christ, at that point, when he incarnated in this last time, 2,000 years ago, he was an evolved spirit, a pure spirit, and the intensity of his life, of his spiritual experience, was the highest as it can be.
Okay.
It was like all the way up on the chart.
Christ is a horrible example.
No, it is. I agree with you. But yeah.
But let me explain why. Because Christ is perfect to us because we're at the very, very, very beginning. Yeah. But like Haroldo Dutra explains beautifully in one of his lectures, there are levels of Christs. Okay? So just because you are a Christ today doesn't mean that you stopped evolving. You still have things to learn, you still have things to do, you still have things that you have to be diligent about. So when we think of Christ, for us, we think of it at the last point. All right? So let us think about it this way, to answer your question on a more...
Yeah, I agree. Jesus Christ might be a bad example, but we can call Mandusi, we can call Chico Xavier, that have intense spiritual existence.
They are all in the ascending slope.
They are, but
all
they
of them.
would be on the top
No.
in terms of experience, of
No.
spiritual intensity of spiritual experience.
No.
And yet, their need would be very low.
No. Don't think it like that. I'm begging you to detach yourself from a reincarnation process. This is why I labeled here spiritual progress. Okay? We have venerated names, people we adore whose names for us are very important. And I agree that our this reverence we have for them is very healthy because they are examples for us. But don't use a single reincarnation. Don't use a single life. This is spiritual progress. You have to detach yourself when you think about this as general as possible. This is why I very, 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 very carefully did not give you any examples at the very beginning. The intensity of our spiritual experience, it decreases after a certain point. right? Because we have less and less demands from this. The bodies that I will be building at this level of morality and advancement will be so much more ethereal that it will cost me less. It's not cost in sense of, I'm thinking about just reincarnation here. Imagine the perispirit is the same thing. When I build this body, I have a cost, it's called a maintenance cost, that I cannot get away with. I have to have it. If I want this physicality for me to go forward, to improve myself, there's a maintenance cost. But as I improve myself more and more, the maintenance cost of these things begins to get lower. So the intensity is lower. The intensity of the need. Let us look at the wants.
No, your graph says the intensity of the spiritual experience is lower. That's what I'm not understanding.
No, it's not saying that.
The intensity is lower, and so goes lower.
No.
The need.
Do you remember when I gave you the?
Over time.
Do you remember when I gave?
Over the spiritual progress timeline.
Okay. No. You are taking the first derivative of the graph, and I want to talk about averages, mathematically speaking. I want you to see spans, ranges. When I go from here to here, what happens? Don't look at points, okay? Because this is qualitative, is to indicate a concept, all right? Don't try to read too much into it, because if we try to use math is not perfect. This is just to give you an idea, to give us an idea. When I move from here to here, so in this span of spiritual progress, the intensities go from here to here, so the intensities go down. That's all. All I'm saying is that I have less demands that are being imposed by either this physical body or my spiritual body. That's all. Don't try to pinpoint things, because then we go into problems. Then this graph cannot be used to represent that. All right?
Yeah, I have a big problem with this graph. As a mathematician, like, it really doesn't make zero sense to me. Like, how do you start with, like, explaining like,
Going back, is every time
yeah, like, you explained it in detail how we're measuring spiritual progress, intensity of spiritual experience, and then after all this explanation, boom, you're starting to measure needs instead of intensity of spiritual experience. How, like, I have no idea how these two are related. Are you trying to say they're the same? Or,
Do you remember?
like, you're measuring needs with the intensity. This is very, very not clear.
Do you remember the definition of needs? So it's part of that. Okay? Now, as a mathematician, don't try to get too much into it. This is just a figure to explain a concept that is way more complex than that. Okay? Do not try to break it down.
Right. You cannot say that Chico Xavier had, like, less than spiritual experiences. So you cannot completely equate the intensity of spiritual experiences with your needs. How can you, I mean...
May I make a suggestion? You guys are bogged down because you're getting examples into it.
No, not example,
No,
but
if you
measuring
say,
needs where it says intensity of spiritual
look,
experience, how can you
all of
measure
us,
by this
listen,
intensity?
all of us,
Let's give them a chance.
yes,
Relax and give them a
relax. Look, all of us are here. All of us are here. Chico Xavier is here. Mother Teresa is here. Divaldo Franco is here. They are all there in the ascending slope. All right? This is a lot more. It's just for us to think about, one day we'll reach a point when we won't need a physicality. We're far from it. Far from it. There's only one person we know, okay, in history that reached that point, which is Christ. Christ did not reincarnate, it incarnated. There was no more need for it to create a physicality, to learn anything on this planet. So this is the whole thing. So this is much more encompassing than just our lives. Our lives are here. Maybe, perhaps not even here, maybe here. All right? But let us look at the wants. This is, again, it's just a qualitative. Let's look at the ideas here. Okay? Sorry. So we saw this. All right. So this is the definition of wants. Impositions, or anything that is associated with it, whose willful emergence is imparted. So we will them into existence. We create the wants, unlike the needs. All right? And this creation is based on moral intellectual advancement. Like I gave the example of the Aborigine, right? He may desire things, make things into existence, and based on whatever he or she understands of life. And this is why I said, again, it's individual. So let us look here. Again, qualitative. Now, if we look at the curve of wants, we see that is a little different. Okay? Again, look. You might say, wow, one is much smaller than the other, one was bigger than the other. It's just to emphasize a point. All right? Don't be too much on it. So, let's go here. First thing is, I'm put together. I'm not a spirit, by the way. What am I when I'm put together as an essence? An intelligence principle. And if I now create a physicality, it's a monad. We are only called spirits when our perispirit takes the form of a human body. Until then, we are monads. As monads, we are not associated with this physicality. We are, remember, we don't say we are a rock, we are an amoeba, we say we are associated, we are learning principles next to those things. So, at the very end, if I don't have self-awareness, I don't have any moral and intellectual development, so I don't have any wants. I cannot will anything into existence, all right, if I am not aware of my own existence. All right? So, very simple. So, again, qualitatively speaking, just so as to make a comparison between the two. Then, for a while, until we reach a certain point, all right? Here, we still have no wants. But after a certain point, from this point on, so let's see from here now, all the way to the top, our wants increase. Our wants, what? I go from here all the way there. So my wants are increasing. I want, I desire, right? So here is the age of self-awareness, as Joana de Angelis puts it. This is the age of self-awareness. But an uncontrolled, an unbridled self-awareness. I see myself as the center of things. Okay? Now, somewhere here, I take a human form. My monad is now associated to a human form, and I call myself spirit. I get a promotion and titles. And then my wants go up and up and up and up. Okay? And it's quite a lot, right? And the whole idea about making this very, very steep and bigger is just to impart that this comes from us. So there is kind of a negative connotation to it. And this is why I also put it in red. That's not an accident, okay? As we say in psychiatry, there are no accidents. So there is a negative connotation, but you have to be very careful not to think of every want as a negative thing. It's not that. But here, when it becomes an unbridled thing, okay, when it becomes something that is uncontrolled, we can actually begin to desire carrots that look a lot tastier than they actually are. And we start chasing dreams, chimeras. And we create things for ourselves that look like a need when it's actually a want. It's how I need to have a new car every day, a new apartment every 2 or 3 years. And actually, it's not a need. It's a want. So the idea here, when I make this curve a lot steep, and then the other one, all of that, and in red, is just to emphasize that point. But wants are important. For instance, when you go and you start college, or you stay over at the office because you want a promotion. You don't need, you want a promotion. But that makes you work harder. or makes you work with a goal, with a destination. And that is important for your spiritual progress. If wants were only negative, I wouldn't plot, I would not put it in a graph with spiritual progress. So wants are positive as well. As long as we learn to desire the right carrot and not make it look tastier than it actually is. Right? Perception. All right? And this is why also I said at the very beginning, I already told you, I'm not going to give you a map, a road map. You have to figure out what your needs are, what your wants are. Because we have different backgrounds. Different backgrounds. All right? So, for instance, someone here who works with different individuals from different nationalities may have a need to learn other languages. And others who work in an office, in an environment that's much more closely closed, for instance, in terms of other nationalities, may not have a need to learn another nationality. That's a silly example, right? The whole point is that it's individual. Remember, it's personal. So here it is. But then I said it goes all the way to the top, all right? And
But where's Jesus Christ on?
let us not talk about Jesus.
No, but you showed us where he was on the seat. Where is he on the
Okay, I'll talk about it in a second. Give me a minute, okay? So now, yeah, I know we get all, see, we always want these things, right? Because do you know what it is? These endpoints are comparisons. And in Spiritism, we always learn baby steps and no comparisons. Because you may look at your colleague next to you, and that person, wow, is doing amazing things. And then both of you die, and you get to the other side, and you actually get many more medals, because you had a set, remember the set or conditions thereof? A set of conditions that were a lot more constricting and limiting than that individual. So when that individual accomplished all of that, that person, I don't want to put that individual down, okay? It's just an example. But that individual may have just fulfilling what he or she had to do, whereas you were battling against unsurmountable odds. So be very careful with comparisons. And this is again why I try to make this general and not look at examples. Because if I give an example here, you will relate to that example different than he will, than she will, and so on and so forth. Right? So when it gets to a certain point, what happens is that the intensity of our wants go down. All right?
You just said the right word, the intensity of wants, and this is what we're measuring. You really are measuring the intensity of our wants, and in the first graph you were measuring the intensity of our needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you call it intensity of spiritual experience? That's really super confusing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mislabeled it.
Okay, so that was the whole problem. Why I did have
Yeah.
the problem with it? Why I had a
You
problem
know,
with it?
because the spiritual experience is a want or a need, depending on how we see it.
No, but even in the definition of
Okay.
need, you clarify that it's connected to the body, it's about the body.
Oh.
How can you measure it in spiritual experience?
No.
Actually, just
No, be
really
careful.
your needs?
Be careful. It's not just on one and then the other is on the other side. A want is not physical and a need is non-physical, or the other way around. No.
No, I understand.
Okay?
I just have a feeling
Right?
that you mislabeled the vertical axis.
No, not necessarily, but if you prefer, you can think of it now as intensity of,
Or maybe
or your
maybe
wants.
I don't understand that maybe I can't really explain how wants and needs are like really correlated with spiritual experience per se.
Okay.
I just
Yep.
If you go back to the definition, I think you have a very good point. But in both, when he used the word conditions for needs, and then he used the word impositions for wants, and then if you to go back for the explanation, actually, we have events, circumstances,
Yep.
and tests and trials. Actually, they're the same definition. So in both cases, conditions and the need, and impositions and the wants, they mean experiences. So that's
Yeah.
why.
But it's not necessarily spiritual.
Right, let me get there. So
Well-
that's the first one. Now, the spiritual, as you explained at the beginning, Júlio.
No, you're right. Go, please. No, please, because it means...
The intensity of needs and wants, but kind of like
Right,
translate it into, yeah, so a couple of steps got missed, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Because if you're here for
We are here to debate, yes. And there is another reason why I put the word spiritual, okay? Because if I put physical here, it only applies to earth, for us now, right? If I put spiritual, I may be reincarnated or not, and I'm still progressing. So I have to use the term that is the most generic. That's the thing.
And everything that happens to the spirit, incarnated or not, is a spiritual experience.
As a first approximation, yes, it passes on if it's possible for the physicality to embrace that new concept, right? Because, for instance, let's say I have something in my body and I am, that I bring as an atavism. I bring from past reincarnations. If now I have a lot of forbearance in this life, I may not have that thing physically solved, but my spirit will have it physically solved. I'll give an example. Here I want to have an example. Chico Xavier always said, my body is sick, my spirit is not. So, but whatever that spirit from Chico Xavier had accomplished, it could not pass it on because the genetics made an imposition, a limitation. So this is why, so I would say as a first approximation, yes, my spirit experiences something and it can pass it on. Okay, but we'll be very careful with that.
In the way I see, it doesn't, it is still a spiritual experience because the way I'm seeing, maybe I'm saying,
No, say please.
The way I'm seeing the spiritual experience are the experience that we will live and on earth or in the other side of life in order to evolve.
Exactly. And if the physicality cannot accommodate that right now, my spirit is still learning it, and when I go and build a new body for a new reincarnation process, it will use that as experience.
In the example of Chico, he could be like, I have this sick body, I hate my life. Then is a...
That's no forbearance.
Yeah.
Absence of forbearance.
And then like he's learning or not,
And
you're
just
learning
to
or not accepting
confirm,
it.
just to confirm that the word experience is not a qualitative word saying, oh, you are more experienced.
No.
No. It's a set of
Exactly.
events, conditions, circumstances that are built into what he wants to call experience.
It's what you live, you experience.
If we have a need for like water, food, and everything, we are translating these like we're taking a couple of steps and translating them into spiritual experiences and putting on that graph. Like where is
Yep. That is part of experiences in the graph as well. Yep.
I'm not sure I agree with it, but
Those are experiences as well. Because think about it.
spiritual.
This is the best car I could put together. This is the best car I could put together for me to drive. I could not have put together a better body. Because that's what I want. I know.
But just something, guys, we have like 20 minutes. As Julie goes through what he can bring to us, and then later on you can have questions. Tough crowd tonight, isn't it?
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Really, I'm actually quite pleased because, this is not simple. It is deceptively simple. There is so much that rides on these qualitative graphs, on the concept of what wants it, and I wanted to go home confused. Because if you tell me that you understood everything, you didn't. I know I have experience teaching, folks, and I wanted to go confused in the sense not of disrespectfully confused, but in the sense of I have to think a little more about it. Intrigued, puzzled. It's in that sense, the confused in the original sense of the word, which meant not befuddled, but intrigued and puzzled. You flip a few pieces of the jigsaw and you think that this is an ocean. It turns out to be a lake, but it was blue anyway.
Just to want it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Good. All right. And then top, then comes down, because here, as Joana de Anjos tells us, all right, so if we have the age of, consciousness, right, then eventually we realize, oh, wait a second, why am I creating such a chimera for me to run after? Why am I running after, a dream? All right, why don't I find myself happy with what I have, or just a little, just desiring just a little more instead of wanting so much? And then we kind of fine-tune our wants. But our wants never go away completely because our wants is the carrot in front of us. We really want to grab that carrot.
Perfection.
It's the perfection. Now, the perfection is the need, but wanting to get to it is the want. The desire, the willfulness to get to the carrot is the want. So it has to remain. It has to be something left. It cannot go to zero, because if it goes to zero, I lose the will to live eternity. Not here, eternity. It's spiritual suicide. It's not even suicide here on earth. It's like I want to be extinguished. I want to extinguish my essence, right? So this is it here. So it's always going to be a little bit left. So now that we have the wants, now that we have the needs, okay, we can put the two together and have a look at how these things look, right? Don't worry about this being dashed. Don't worry about it. We'll get there, all right? No, that's good, that's good. I really appreciate that everybody's so engaged, all right? No, it's important and it's respectfully engaged, right? So, again, don't think of, oh, my wants are 3 times as big as my... No, it's not that. It's just for you to understand that there is only so much that the psychosomatic apparatus will give to us as a need, all right? There's only so much. For instance, if you think of a physical body, which is the simplest thing for us to think, because we all have one and we all think physically. So I have to drink water. But do I have to drink Dawn something or Perrier water? No, it just has to be what? Clean water. Do I have to eat at the most expensive restaurant every single time? No, but I have to have the nutrients. So the needs, in a sense, are limited and are controlled by the psychosomatic organization, whether it's the physical body or the spiritual body, perispirit. So they don't go beyond that. But I can. I can desire to go even further. No, I want a lot. I don't just want water. I know, champagne. And French champagne. Actually, champagne is only French. Anything else has a different name. Yeah, the French would have a problem with that, you know, if it's... But I want to convey here is, I can actually go from a need and make that into something. I have a perception it's not a need. That it's a need. I create the perception, I need to this thing that is an exaggeration of what my psychosomatic structure demands of me. So this is why we need in Spiritism to understand ourselves, to study and understand ourselves as much as possible, so that I can fine-tune and separate what I want from what I need. Because if I can do that, then when I have only the necessary, my need is satisfied, I say, very well, this is what I can accomplish now. There is no envy for those who have more. There is also no blasphemy against the Creator for not having what I want, even though I say I need that. But I want, actually, it's a desire. So as I fine-tune, that fine-tuning comes from studying. So it doesn't happen right away. I'm going to peak. I'm going to suffer when I get to that peak, because I will create so many chimeras, so many dreams. I'll be chasing so many things that are unreal that eventually I will crash. And I will learn, usually the hard way, we all do, to adjust, to tweak, to fine-tune all my wants until eventually I reach the age of wisdom, wherever that is, whenever that happens, and they become one and the same. And then here I can no longer say, this area of the graph, I can no longer say, so here's the difference at the beginning. Here's my age of understanding and suffering. And then here, when they both get fine-tuned, I fine-tune them. Nobody does it for me. It's individual, it's idiosyncratic, it's personal. I find the balance on that seesaw. I still need things. I still want things. But my needs are based on this, which I put together in the first place. And my wants are just enough to make this better for the next time around. If I no longer have a reincarnation process, fine. My perispirit is evolving. My spiritual body is also evolving. So they get so fine-tuned that here at the very end, they become one and the same thing. Okay? So this is a qualitative idea, right? So you'll see that now they get the same. I made them pink. Just merge the colors there.
I have to ask, at what point do you begin to go down?
Well, it will depend on each one of us, right?
But you mentioned that Joanna's age of self-awareness and self-conscious and self-discovery is when we peak, right?
No. When we're going up, is the ascending.
Right.
Is the ascending
once
phase.
we peak and the direction begins to go down, what do we call that?
Let's call this point here. Let's call this point here the awakening to wisdom.
Okay.
Not wisdom. The awakening towards wisdom.
Thank you.
Okay? I mean, look, like I said, we can call this Shlupsi. It's not the name, again. It's for us to understand that when I reach this point, I realize deep inside, it's not an imposition, it's not a law that if I don't do, I get a penalty, I can penalize. No, I realize that I am creating something. I'm pursuing something that perhaps is beyond me. Or perhaps even if I can actually grab it, when I put that carrot in my mouth, it doesn't taste as good as I thought. Because it's just a carrot. And I think it's a meal. It's just a carrot. Yeah, it's a vegetable. So then I have to see things for what they are. Right? So for instance, think about it this way. Imagine that, now I'm going to give examples. And here's the part that I am always afraid, because we may see ourselves in different situations because we have different backgrounds. But think about it this way. Imagine you have a particular job and now you want a promotion and you kill yourself for that promotion. And let us say it does happen, and then you get there and there's a lot more responsibility and now you're miserable. Remember the sentence, be careful what you wish for, what you want for yourself. So you may be actually pursuing something, not that you are not competent to carry out, it's not that, but that it's not what you thought it would be. It is not what you really need at that moment. Perhaps you needed a job with a little bit less responsibility, perhaps less salary, a smaller paycheck. But the idea is you have that, and that allows you, let's say, to raise a family or to pursue some other activities in parallel, like coming to the Spiritist Center. Maybe you get to the next job and they swamp you with so much responsibility. You have to drop the Spiritist Center. You can no longer come to the Spiritist Center. Or I don't know, maybe you like Robin Hood and you like to play, archery, and now you can no longer take archery classes. Whatever that is, that pursuit, you create a chimera, you created a dream that is actually not what it really represents. But as we become a little wiser, we begin to fine-tune, all right? So don't think of yourselves only here in the sense that, then I'm always making the bad decision. It's not that, all right? Some of us sometimes jump here. So this is why now the graph is difficult to think about. I'm going to tell you something, because not all of you were here. I do remember a few faces. Remember, when we experience something in life meaning here on the physical plane or in the spiritual plane, okay? General spiritual life, right? When we experience something, before we embark on the experience, we create an expectation. Don't worry. The expectation is based on our background. So each one of us, even if we go through the same thing, we will create different expectations because we have different backgrounds. When we have that expectation, eventually we go through the experience and there's an outcome from the experience, the result. What do? What is it that we love to do? Comparison. We love to compare. We take the outcome and the expectation right? And we try to mix and match them. Now, when they match beautifully, that's the positive reinforcement. Either we want to go again and do the same thing again, or we decided to do the same thing but with a little twist so that we can force ourselves, get something more from that experience. So it's an experience prime, a little bit more from it. When outcome and expectations do not match, frustration. That's exactly it. But then what do we do with the frustration? Because it can be constructive. If we learn from it, even if we say, oh, this is something I have to avoid. Sticking my finger in an electrical outlet is not a good thing. That's how a baby learns, right? Well, so if now I have a negative match, it can still be positive in the sense of the whole process, because I can see it as something never to repeat. But I can also have the idea of blasphemy, the idea of regret, everything that is a negative feeling, right? And then I block myself from learning, all right? So even today, when we make a choice and we choose something and we chase after that something, and in the process of chasing we experience whatever it is, all the events, all the conditions and sets thereof associate with that particular chase, if in the end we grab the carrot, put it in our mouth and it's bitter, it's still positive as long as we understand that this is something I shouldn't do again. All right? And this is the part that I cannot represent on that particular graph. This is hard now, because that means that even in terms of my growth, okay, it's not as smooth as that curve. We actually have a jagged line. Sometimes we do have certain glimpses of geniality and wisdom, and then we come down back, to everyday life, and we make a mess of our thing in our lives. But then we have another one of these moments of inspiration, moments of insight, and then back again. So in this jagged line, we have an average progress that is physical, okay? And then it's also in the spiritual realm, spiritual overall. Good? Right? So, okay, see if it's going to come back,
Okay, 1 second.
Oh, yes.
Just one question. How much
Sure.
more time you need?
Oh, quite a lot
Let's keep going.
for this slide.
That's it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's it?
That was it.
Really?
Oh, really?
Wow, you made one time.
Hey, wait. Like I said, it's not as simple as it looks. Okay. Yeah, you basically have to count the leaves.